The recent Associated Press NORC poll finds just 37% of Americans named COVID-19 as one of their top 5 priorities for the government to work on in 2022. That's compared with 53% who said it was a leading priority at the same time just a year ago. Meanwhile, the economy outpaced the pandemic in the open-ended question, with 68% saying it in some way as a top 22 concern, roughly the same amount last year. However, concerns of inflation are much higher now, 14% this year, compared with less than 1% last year. Here to help us dissect the data are Democratic strategist and director at Waxman, Michael Starr-Hopkins, and partner at the CGCN Group, Sam Gadoldig. They're here with us to discuss. Welcome to both of you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Sam, does this speak to how normalized COVID is, or does it speak to, these polls are always hard to sort of dissect, or does it speak to how serious some of these concerns that are downstream of the pandemic itself have become? In other words, is COVID actually going down as a concern, or is it just that these other things are becoming more and more important?
I'm no pollster. I get paid when our clients need help talking to Republican congressmen. I do think there's a sense that, COVID has created a very kind of schizophrenic economy with back to the first segment about, the wealthy and the elite doing really well during it, and a lot of people getting left behind in a very tough way. I think the Democratic constituencies that are being left behind are frustrated with their leaders. And I think the Republican constituencies that are being left behind, and I think there's a lot more poor Republican voters than conventional wisdom kind of lets on. I think they're really upset, and they're blaming the president and the White House and the House and Senate and Dem governors and the sweep that Democrats had in 2020. So just like with Trump, and when Republicans were in charge, there was a backlash against Republicans because they were in charge. Running a checks and balances campaign is easy to do when you have no power. So, our voters are annoyed, angry, upset for a gazillion reasons. And I think it's all the same thing. I think COVID and the economy is kind of the same issue to a lot of people. But I'm not a pollster. I didn't take the poll, so I don't know.
And Michael, how much of the Democratic screwing up over COVID do you think is squarely at their feet, and how much of it has to do with the way that the different variants rolled out and when they rolled out?
Well, like I said before, I think the messaging for Democrats has just been atrocious. But I think this is a really interesting scenario. In Herbert Walker's administration in '92, we had that recession that basically ended his presidency for re-election. What you're seeing now is because we had the pause of the economy, it's reshuffling everything. So people are quitting jobs, people are now working remotely, people are starting new careers. And I think we're in this short-term period where the market's really hot. I think in like a year, you're going to see it kind of stabilize and people have a new normal. We're always going to have some semblance of COVID around, but I think work-wise, economy-wise, we're going to see a lot more adapting.
Well, on Monday, U.S. stocks resumed their sell-off as government bond yields continued to tick upward, hinting that traders are growing more wary the Federal Reserve will move in the next few months to pass interest rates. Sam, I'm going to throw this question to you. What do you think the likelihood of the Fed taking action on that is?
Again, I wish I could tell you. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think anyone knows what they're doing with this economy. We just poured all this money into it. It propped it up for as long as it did. I think there's all these other factors and unintended consequences to dumping that much money into the economy. One of them being the wrong people kind of got all of it. And I think they're just throwing spaghetti at the wall. I couldn't sit here and tell you I know what the Fed is going to do next, and I don't know that anyone can. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. And Michael, how would you suggest that they improve messaging around this? Because as the poll shows, a lot of people at this point don't really want to hear about COVID. Even as we're setting records for case numbers, we still have more than 1,000 people dying a day. you have a majority of the country who are saying, look, I'm done with this. I don't care if it's not done with us, but I'm done with it. So how do Democrats message around that?
I think that finally sending COVID tests to every American is a really good first step. I think we just have to accept that there's going to be a new normal. And so as we adapt to that new normal, we also have to figure out how people work, how people, take care of their families. Because when a kid gets sick, that means a parent has to stay home. And the more people that work remote, that means we're going to have an issue with commercial realty. So there are a lot of unintended consequences, but there are also a lot of benefits. And so I think Democrats need to talk about the benefits that are coming out of COVID in terms of rising wages, in terms of, finally getting shipping and manufacturing back. And honestly, the technology that we've created because of the vaccines, I think will be transformational over the next 10 to 20 years.
A lot of good points there, Michael. Thank you both so much for your insights this morning.
Thanks.
All right, we'll have more Rising right after this.